What's going on, guys? I'm Rodney. Welcome to the after credit scene review and breakdown of Black Widow. This video, I apologize, has been a long time coming. My full-time job takes a whole lot of time in the summer, and with this movie coming out, there just was not enough time to sit down and adequately review this movie with so many other things coming out. I just had a lot of stuff on my plate, but it did give me the opportunity to go back and watch the movie a couple of times, and I really enjoyed being able to dig into some of the meatier themes of this movie. So hang in here, stick around. We're going to start off with some of the Easter eggs and start off with a little bit of the plot, and then really dig into a lot of what this movie was about. So right off the bat, first I need to tell you this is spoiler heavy, so if you haven't seen Black Widow, what are you doing? It's been long enough. Watch it. If you are interested in some of our other trailers, reviews for Spider-Man No Way Home, for Shang-Chi, for the Disney Plus What If series, those are all in our playlists, and there's some links at the end of the video where you can watch those things. This movie, really enjoyed this movie. As far as being a quality drama, well acted, well paced, it's, as far as good movies go, it's probably a top 10 movie for me in terms of Marvel movies. I'm not a huge fan of the character, but as far as the story goes and how they pieced it into the greater Marvel universe, I thought it was really, really good, and it gave a pretty good send-off, I thought, for Scarlett Johansson. It gave a good send-off for Black Widow, where you got to see more of her story, get some backstory, also see what leads her into Infinity War, which made me want to go back and watch Infinity War and Endgame that much more. But it also did some heavy lifting in the form of setting up things for the MCU moving forward. There was an appearance by Contessa Valentina, and in the form of Julia Louis-Dreyfus. There was some setup for the new Black Widow and her appearance in, I'm presuming, the Hawkeye series in the form of Yelena, played by Florence Pugh. And we'll just stop for a moment and talk about, in terms of acting, Scarlett Johansson did amazing. She is that character. She owns that character of Natasha Romanoff. But Yelena and David Harbour both really stole the show. I know Rachel Weisz is an amazing actress, but you know, you're ranking on a scale of 10. You're ranking 8s and 9s performance-wise, and Harbour's over the topness, and Yelena's just personality and quirkiness. Florence Pugh just knocked that role out of the park, and the things that she was doing, and so Rachel Weisz's character kind of got swallowed up in some of that. But then you have a lot of other good performances and a lot of other good stories. And the movie overall, as far as being a spy drama and having a few little twists and backstory, I thought they did a really good job with it. You could enjoy this movie without knowing a lot about what came before it or what's coming next, and it gave, I think Marvel does a really good job of doing that. It gave newcomers a place to start off. It gave people that have been with the story for a long time more story and a place to move forward and get a lot of answers, really, that we hadn't gotten in other places. And so as far as where, you know, how this fits in phase 4 of Marvel starting off, because of COVID and things like that, I think it was really hard for it to be a really big, you know, tentpole blockbuster type thing and really kick off phase 4 with a bang. So it's kind of a slow build, but you got some backstory and really some boiling, some rumbling leading into some of this new stuff with Shang-Chi and the Eternals and Spider-Man No Way Home. I mean, we got a lot of base and we got a lot of build, and then now we're just going to get punched with some really deep stories. Again, as far as this movie went, I loved it, loved the pacing, loved the story, loved the acting. I loved where it connected with the rest of this story and the rest of the MCU. let's just go ahead and dive into the Easter eggs, because I really want to get that out of the way to talk about some of the meatier themes in this movie. First off, we get a lot of backstory, not so much in visual form, but really in some insinuation and revisiting of locations. We get a lot of that backstory about Budapest with regard to what happened between Clint and Natasha. What I thought was really cool there, I liked that they didn't just go back and show it to you, but you had to kind of infer this story. Maybe we'll get some more of that in Hawkeye. I don't know. It wouldn't surprise me if we did, but if we didn't, it wouldn't surprise me either. But getting to see the safe house where Natasha hid out, where Clint tracked her down. Now, whether she defected to begin with or Clint tracked her down and turned her, clearly there was a battle there because there's arrow holes in the walls that Yelena asks about. And then as Yelena and Natasha are running from the Taskmaster, we see them hiding in the air vent in a subway terminal, and there's stuff written on the walls, and Natasha says that they hid there for a couple of days while they were being looked for. So this was Natasha's way out of the Black Widow program, and then she came to the States, presumably thinking that she had toppled the Red Room and toppled Dreykov and all those kind of things, only to find out that there was unfinished business there, and that's what this whole movie's about. And so, but getting all that Budapest backstory and diving right into the Easter eggs, the markings on the air vents where Yelena and Natasha are hiding, as she tells her that, her and Clint had hidden out there for a couple of days. You see they played tic-tac-toe. They're awful at tic-tac-toe. Somebody actually won twice, and then somebody was just awful at it. But they played tic-tac-toe, and then there is a hangman with some words on it, and you can kind of extrapolate from the letters that have been guessed and the words that are filled out, that the word they were looking for was butterfly. So not only is that fitting for Natasha's whole story, that she has been released, that she's free, that she is transformed into something else, but also for this TV, not the TV show, but for this movie, it fits the theme of the movie as well, that she is growing and becoming something different. Everybody around her is in this metamorphosis phase, and everything that she's encountering has been in a metamorphosis phase. The Red Room has been changed. Taskmaster has morphed. It's someone who's literally in a cocoon. All of the Black Widows seemingly are in a cocoon because they are being controlled, and being able to break out of that and become something stronger, something more beautiful is really cool. I thought an interesting little Easter egg there, not was just the word, but if you think back to Age of Ultron, there is a moment where one of the Avengers are having a conversation in the kitchen of Clint's house, and they're talking about what does Ultron want, what's he doing, and Bruce Banner figures it out because he's looking at a drawing that one of Clint's children made of a butterfly. And so presumably they maybe draw a lot of butterflies, but that's how Bruce figures out that Ultron does not want to destroy, that he wants to transform, he wants to become something different, he wants the human race to evolve, and that leads them to where they're going and ultimately the final battle. But just that word butterfly, that idea that it popped up in Clint's world, that it fits the theme of the Black Widow movie, I thought was really interesting. Also, a few little things that relate to the Red Guardian. He gets referred to as the Crimson Dynamo by Yelena. She messes up his name, doesn't remember his name. That's a nod to the comics. As Red Guardian is playing in prison and he's doing arm wrestling and stuff, one of the characters that comes up to him is this guy that's named Ursa, and he challenges the Red Guardian, saying, hey, when did you say you fought Captain America? And he gives him a date, and he says, well, he was still frozen in ice around then. And Red Guardian then proceeds to break his wrist, but he calls him Ursa, and then he says, run along, little bear. In the comics, that character pops up in some of these Red Guardian comic runs, and Ursa is actually a mutant. It's a guy that can turn into a bear. And so it's an interesting little nod there. I'm not saying that guy's a mutant, but the seeds are getting planted, and those things are everywhere. Marvel's just saying, hey, it's coming, it's coming, it's coming. The Red Guardian toy too has its own little theme music, has the comic accurate costume on it. Also, the other little things there, as Yelena is getting out of her car to go and visit Natasha's gravestone at the end of the movie, she makes a comment. She calls the dog by name, and she says, "Come on, Fanny." The dog's name is Fanny, and presumably, I don't know if she named it after this or not, but the nod there that you should pick up on is to one of the passports, one of the fake identities that Natasha is given early on in the movie. She makes a joke that she's looking at her passports, and she says, Fanny Longbottom, that's the best name you could come up with. And they kind of make a joke about the nickname. And then, the nod there that Yelena names her dog that as well is just kind of a joke, a tongue-in-cheek type thing. The other thing that I thought was interesting there, not necessarily an Easter egg, but just a question that I had that I wanted to address. When Yelena goes and visits the gravestone of Natasha, it has a whole bunch of things around it, none of which I can really identify, bears and roses and candles and pictures and things, presumably from people who are grateful for her sacrifice because of what she did to help bring everybody back. I'm assuming that the Avengers let everybody know what she did and how she did it, but the headstone reads, Daughter, Sister, Avenger. Now, unless Natasha told somebody in the Avengers that she had a family, that she had a sister, maybe she told Clint or somebody privately. I was wondering who made the headstone, because did the Avengers make the headstone? My guess is no. If I had to guess, I would say Yelena did it, and that's how Val knew where to find her, because Yelena made a habit of visiting her sister's headstone. Also, the headstone was beneath a tree that had had pink flowers on it, and she was buried in Ohio, because Val makes a comment about being allergic to the Midwest. And so, presumably, you can infer that Yelena was the one that made the headstone. She did know that her sister was, in fact, a daughter, a sister, and an Avenger, because in Endgame, after Natasha dies and the rest of the crew is mourning her loss on the pier, they ask, did she have any family? And they say, just us. So the assumption is there that nobody knew that she had any other family. They thought she was an orphan. They thought she was, all alone. And so when Yelena found out about Natasha's death and her sacrifice, she made that headstone. She's the one that put that there, and that's why Val knew where to find her. And also because the headstone is in, presumably, Ohio, because of the comments that Val made. So just something that bothered me that I had to go back and watch it again to kind of wrap my mind around. There's a couple of other things that Easter egg-wise, Hydra always has their answer to something that S.H.I.E.L.D. does. S.H.I.E.L.D. has Captain America and Hydra has Red Skull, and this happens and that. They have their own variations of characters, especially in the comics. They have their own answer to things. I found that the Red Room and the Widow program was no different. The Red Room being hidden in the clouds and hidden someplace off the radar like that, up in the sky, felt like a nod to the helicarriers that S.H.I.E.L.D. had. Perhaps Dreykov noticed what S.H.I.E.L.D. was doing, noticed that they could go undetected up there, and decided to move the Red Room up into the clouds. And so there's a little playful back and forth there, if you will, the comparisons between the two organizations. The other thing that I thought was an interesting Easter egg, and a lot of people have already picked up on it, but in the process of giving us the spy thriller twist that Natasha's character is actually her mother in disguise, and her mother is actually Natasha in disguise, so that she could get access to Dreykov. Natasha has to dress like her mother so that Dreykov thinks it's her. So she puts on a Black Widow suit that has a few differences in it, and her mother puts on the white one. Then, after the battle is all said and done, in the fallout, in the rubble of the Red Room, Yelena gives Natasha her vest, her green vest with all the pockets on it. And if you notice in Infinity War, Natasha is still wearing that black outfit with that green vest. So she is fighting in her mother's outfit and her sister's vest. So it's kind of both of her families uniting together. And it makes, even though it was something that they pieced together after the fact, like, hey, what if we made this vest be this thing that she then wears? If Kevin Feige had that planned all along, hats off, man. But that's a little far-fetched and a little further out planning-wise than I would care to imagine that they went. So it's okay to say, well, the costume department put this vest on her, so what if we use that vest and we make it something that she wore early on? That's fine too. Still fits the flow of the storyline. But I say all that to say, when you go and watch Infinity War, it really makes her battle scenes and her character depth that much greater and that much more impactful, that she is fighting alongside her Avengers family, wearing the outfit that's representative of her Russian family and her heritage, that she has come full circle, that she is now grown, and her sacrifice makes more sense, that she's at peace, she is willing to do that, and she has all the more reason to do it, especially when you get back to her and Clint fighting over who's going to sacrifice themselves, and her knowing that she needs to be the one to do it because she's at peace, where Clint has demons that he has to overcome. And so that was really cool, Easter egg wise as well. Outside of all the Easter eggs, we already kind of talked about the movie, what I thought of it. Thought it was a great movie. Easter eggs aside, want to kind of dive in just for a second. A lot of people were bothered by the fact that Taskmaster ended up being Dreykov's daughter. Did not bother me. That character, just like any other character in the comics, the mantle can be passed to other people. The concept is out there now, so if somebody else wanted to do it, or if maybe she stays Taskmaster and becomes good, or somebody else takes it to Framer, who knows? But I thought using that and using that character of Taskmaster and then flipping it gender-wise to make the reveal, oh, this is a woman, and a character that needed to be not redeemed and not saved, but just brought back, was really great. And it provides a really interesting meta moment for fans, because the whole movie is very empowering towards women. It's very, it's not necessarily in your face about it. It's just very straightforward. But it almost dares you to poke at anything gender related because of how strong it is. So any male fans looking at this movie and going, well, I wish they'd have made Taskmaster a man. Okay, why? Well, because that's what it was in the comics. Okay, well, why? It doesn't matter. The whole point of this movie was that they are equals, that they are that women are strong, that they are independent, that they can handle themselves, and this not this idea of this idea of breaking free from the control of a man, but becoming who you're meant to be, which requires you to not allow yourself to be under the thumb of someone else. That there's a difference between sacrifice and allowing yourself to partner with somebody, like we see with her and her family with David Harbour's character. But the difference between that and that kind of strong-willed man, who even in his sometimes his idiocy was still more worthy of being protected and followed than somebody who was strong and powerful and smart like Dreykov. And it wasn't just because he was evil. It was this. They were just taking tropes and these ideas of a dumb man and a strong, powerful man and just flipping them on their head constantly. And so to have Taskmaster be something different, I thought really fit the storyline. It really fit the plot, and it was something that that allowed Natasha to have to literally battle her past and her demons. So that I thought it was really, really cool. Having said that, I couldn't help but compare this movie to Captain Marvel. You know, Marvel has really tried to answer the call and the need to be more open and honest about how inclusive and diverse they are in their movies, and so you've seen them make a more concerted effort to do that. I liked Captain Marvel, but compared to Black Widow, Captain Marvel's a little on the nose. And I'll use this as an example. The movie is set in the 90s, and so there's a lot of great 90s songs to pull from. But as Carol is fighting Jan Rog and all of the rest of the Kree up in Marvel's lab, she's fighting against the people that have held her down for so long. She's being an independent, strong woman. She's taking back her power. You know, all those kind of things. But the song they used for this intense battle moment is this peppy, No Doubt song that over and over says, "I'm just a girl." Yes, we get it. You're a girl. The movie was empowering, completely focused on her story. But just that reminder that, like, hey, this is a girl movie. Hey, this is a girl. She's doing these things. Yeah, great. I was applauding it before they got to those moments. I thought the more interesting moment and the one that had the bigger punch was the payoff from Carol and Jan fighting at the beginning of the movie, and her using her powers to fight him, and him saying, "You're cheating. You need to get control of your anger because that's anger. You need to learn to fight without those things. You need to be powerful regardless." And then at the end, when he tries to fight her and he challenges her and he says, "Come on, can you fight me without your powers? Can you do this and do that?" And she shoots him with one of her photon beams and says, "I don't have to prove anything to you." That's who she is. Somehow her power had made her, that she wasn't actually her without her power, and she's taking ownership of it and saying, "No, I'm me, but I'm also me with this power. It's not the power that makes me who I am. It's just me, and I'm using this, and it's what I use it for that makes me powerful." And so I thought that was a much more empowering message than just kind of browbeating it. And I felt like Marvel went a little over the top to remind us that they were being inclusive than they did at all in Black Widow. Black Widow's story is amazing. It's all about, the entire thing, especially when you get down to the crux of it, with Dreykov and Natasha talking and back and forth with each other in the Red Room. It is metaphorically, it's something here about a powerful man that's preventing even a confident woman from attacking her. Probably all heard stories. You can Google and read stories about women who are abused by men, who feel like, even in the workplace, that powerful men somehow are not allowing those women to speak up, which is very true in a lot of situations. But you read stories where, a woman's being abused for years, and you just think, why didn't she leave him? And it's that power, it's that fear, it's that that idea that has been put in their head that you can't survive as a woman without a strong, powerful man. And even though he beats you, he still maybe he comes back and says, "I'm sorry." Maybe he showers you with gifts. Maybe he, takes care of you. Even and you can suffer through the beatings if it means that you get love and care and concern from time to time. It sounds ridiculous, but it's this mindset that gets conditioned, just like these Black Widows are conditioned to be killers, to be fighters, but then they take it one step further, that they have no choice, that it's this mental block, and Natasha trying to punch him and pull the trigger on him, and she can't do it because of who he is. Some of the same conversations, Yelena and Natasha are so frustrated at David Harbour's character, at Alexei, for not being there for them, for giving them over back to the Red Room, and they blame him for that. But at the end of the day, he is still he's still their father figure. And when he sits down with Yelena and he tells that ridiculous story about his dad peeing on his hands to keep him from frostbite. It's a moving story for a man to know that, like, hey, fathers will do whatever it takes to take care of their children, even if they go to extreme measures. But it didn't resonate with her, and the only way, and the way he learns to resonate with Yelena is to sit down and sing her favorite song, and they still have this connection, even though things are not great. They kind of played off of these relationships quite a bit, but this idea, even right there at the end, is played out through the whole series of interactions that the women have with each other and the women have with the men in this whole movie. The metaphor of the Black Widows themselves being women that are powerful, but they are powerful because they are being controlled by a man, and then being able to be free and doing what they want the way they want to. Even down to the point where Dreykov calls women a natural resource, the one thing the world has too much of. And it's just a resource for him to mine, like money or power, something he wields to get his way. Is a very chauvinistic, male, misogynistic attitude, but it's out there. And the whole movie being this thing where Natasha and Yelena and everyone's learning to take their power back, and not just, taking their power back by destroying this person and then getting their power, but learning within themselves that they are confident, they're strong, they can do it themselves, and they can take care of it. And that is actually played out verbatim, where Natasha starts egging Dreykov on. And Dreykov is punching her, and you think she's just giving in, that she's kind of going crazy. And you find out, because of some flashbacks, that Natasha's trying to get him to break her nose, to sever this nerve, so that she can no longer smell the pheromones that he's putting off that are preventing her from shooting him. And he can't break that. He doesn't do that. And she actually says, "You couldn't do it, so I'm going to do it myself." And he says, "What?" And she says, "Sever the nerve." It's this taking back control moment where she does it herself, where yes, it hurts, and yes, and even in those moments, you're mourning a loss, much like a woman that's been abused. Having to leave her abuser. It still may be somebody she cared about. It's a relationship. People are complicated, and when those things happen, it does sever a nerve. It does break things. It hurts. It's okay to mourn that loss. It doesn't make the woman weak. It doesn't make the man more powerful because I had that control over you. People are just, we connect with each other. And so when Natasha says, "I had to sever the nerve," she physically does that. And is able to then, because of her confidence, because of what she did to herself, she kind of did the work herself. She's able to then confront that and do what she has to do. And when she does that, it's not just her punching him and fighting him, but he leaves. He runs away because if there's one thing an insecure, chauvinistic man hates, it is a confident woman who does not need him. And so just seeing that played out in a way that wasn't super, pardon the pun, on the nose. It wasn't done in a way that was like, see what we're doing, see what we're doing. It was just a very good story where girls or women or people that idolize this character could look and say, "I'm strong, I can do this." And it's an interesting story, even for guys. It doesn't matter, male, female, Marvel tells good stories. And so the characters are interesting, the acting is amazing, the special effects were awesome, and I was super excited about it to begin with, and then to see where they took the story and making that really positive message and strong message for women and girls, especially where they're Yelena and Natasha are poking at each other about, you're a poser, you do this, people are watching you. You like, it's okay to own those things. It doesn't make you weak or too feminine, or you don't have to be overly masculine to be a strong woman, and vice versa. And so just really breaking all those stereotypes was really, really awesome. I liked seeing all those things. Beyond that, there's a lot of personification in there of communism, and Alexei, the way he talks. And I mean, he might as well, the Red Guardian might as well have been communism in a costume, right down to the way he talks about fighting Captain America. We know from MCU timelines that Captain America is in fact frozen in ice. So there is no way that Steve Rogers is fighting Red Guardian when Red Guardian was at his prime. Now, it doesn't mean that there's not room for some kind of alternate universe Steve Rogers, or an Isaiah Bradley type character, or somebody else who was out there that, Alexei is just mistaking for Captain America. That could be a whole different story if you wanted it. But from what we know right now, while Red Guardian was in his prime, Steve Rogers is frozen in ice. And so they never cross paths. But communism in the 80s really had very little to do with facts. It was all about power, it was all about control, telling people what they needed to know when they needed to know it, even if it wasn't true, if it followed an agenda, if it allowed people to have, the government or whoever, to have more power, keep people under control. Lines for food, lines for bread, lines for everything, to show that the government was in control. It was just handouts. But the Soviet Union would say that, we've got missiles here, we've got missiles there, we're doing this, we're doing that, we have all this money, we're so powerful, we're going to destroy you, right up until the moment that they had to declare bankruptcy and they had to fall apart. And then they end up asking the Western world for help because they're all starving. You find out that they're not what they said they were. They're not even as smart as they claim to be. But the United States wasn't even on par with them as an enemy. You found out after the fact that the United States could have destroyed them at any given point, but it was all window dressing. It was all for show, to make them feel good. It was the political aspects of Captain America without the actual fighting involved. And so Alexei, it shouldn't be, if he is the poster boy for communism and for Mother Russia, it shouldn't have been a surprise that he tells stories about, here's when I fought Captain America and here's what I did. He also could have been under some mind control too, we don't know. But it shouldn't have been any surprise that he says, oh, when I fought Captain America and I did this and I did that, because little Russian boys and girls growing up in communist Russia would want to be like Red Guardian and want to destroy the Western ideals of the United States and patriotism and capitalism and so on and so forth. That's what he was there for. And so to be that person was just really crazy. But it's all about brutality and control, even in the face of facts and questions. It didn't matter. Nothing was ever your fault. And so he becomes that, but he's out of his prime and he's living in his glory days, which weren't even glory days. And it was humorous. And it was a little sad as well to see him that way. There were a lot of back and forth between Eastern ideologies, communist ideals, and Western, capitalism, patriotism, all those things at war, and the juxtaposition of them leaving Ohio and seeing this world that they're leaving and wanting to go back to it, but then going immediately into captivity. In order to be back in Russia, you had to give things up. You had to sacrifice. You had to be a prisoner, as opposed to where they were before, which was not that. And but even with all that, this idea of family and love and connection still cuts through all of those things. Even in the midst of disagreements, that there's a very dysfunctional family. They argue at the table, but they still talk like a family. Don't slouch, don't do this. All these kind of things, and them saying that it didn't mean anything and this and that. And Yelena has a very emotional moment where she says, "Don't say that. Like, it was real to me. It was, even though we took pictures and we faked Christmas, Thanksgiving, Valentine's Day, birthdays, it was still real to me." And Alexei fakes it because he knows he needs to be a good soldier, but he even admits to his wife, his fake wife, later on, that she's just as beautiful as the day he faked married her. That he was attracted to her. He did love her, even if it was all fake. That somehow it became real. And so families are what you make them is one of the big storylines in the movie. So as much as I wanted to get this video out earlier, I was glad I had time to go back and watch it and let it stew, because this is a really meaty movie. It had a lot of layers to it. You could watch it in a very shallow way and just watch the fights and watch the battles and watch the funny and just, you know, see all those things and get that too. It was great. But you could also watch it and get a lot of this depth and a lot of this meaty commentary on Western ideals, Eastern ideals, and then roles between men and women and female empowerment and all these kind of things that were just really, really well done in ways that I didn't think were patronizing or beating you over the head by saying, you have to believe this way. It was just, this is just a really great story with a really powerful, compelling character done really, really well. For no other reason than we love the character and we love the stories and we're there for the ride, which was awesome. But then they added all this depth to it as well. So thanks for sticking around. Thanks for listening. Let me know what you saw, what you caught. Maybe you think I'm way off here. Maybe you think that it's not as deep as that, but maybe you saw some of these things too. I'm interested to hear what you think in the comments. If you caught any other Easter eggs, I'd be interested to hear about that as well. As always, like this video, subscribe to our channel, and make sure to share this video with others all across the multiverse. Until next time, I'm Rodney. We'll see you then.